Hello, everyone. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Thanks for hanging out. I always appreciate you. 1972's The Godfather is really kind of a once-in-a-lifetime movie that doesn't come around very often. It's a masterpiece. It's a cinematic, landmark of a film. So it's really crazy when you think about how just 2 years later, in 1974, Francis Ford Coppola was able to deliver upon the world a sequel to The Godfather that didn't just rival his first film, but in many ways really does kind of surpass it. And, given that we're talking about The Godfather here, that's really kind of incredible and kind of a miracle because The Godfather 2 is just as iconic, maybe even more so than its predecessor. Much kind of how you can make the comparison that Empire Strikes Back is, sort of topples A New Hope in that way. So this is a very interesting film in the way that this is telling two stories, not just one. In this film, we get a continuation of the first film with the Michael Corleone story continuing 7 years later in Nevada. The family's moved from the East Coast to Nevada. They're in the casino business now. And in this film, Michael Corleone is really struggling to keep the empire afloat. At the beginning of the film, there is an attempted assassination on his life that sort of sends him down, kind of an odyssey throughout the film to sort of navigate through the criminal underworld to find who may have betrayed him. And he suspects it's someone within the family, so it gets very, very interesting to say the least. And everybody comes back, Robert Duvall, Talia Shire, and Diane Keaton, they're all really great. And, they don't miss a beat. They come back as their characters, and for the most part, they all sort of evolve a little bit. None of them are quite the same people that they were in the first film because it is 7 years later. And so you get the story with Michael Corleone, but another great treat about this second film is we get a prequel story, an origin story to Vito Corleone, Don Vito Corleone. We see his rise to power, and this time around, because we have to see a younger version of him in the part, we get a young Robert De Niro in the role of Don Vito Corleone, the Marlon Brando role from the first film. So in this film, we get Al Pacino and Robert De Niro together. No scenes together because all of De Niro's scenes take place in the past. But it's really just incredible to see, them in one movie, and how the father's story is really a neat contrast to the story that they're telling in the current timeline, because as you see the father sort of gaining respect, he starts out with nothing. He arrives in America all alone after, traumatic circumstances, in his home country of Sicily. And he arrives in America and, he has nobody, but by the time he grows up, he gets respect. He gets loyalty of those around him. And, we slowly see his rise to power. And, that story is intercut with the story of Michael and his sort of dissension, basically, into misery, because Michael doesn't always make the best choices in this film. And, you see that play out by the end of the movie. He is in a completely different place, in a very dark place. And like I said, all of this spills over into that third film of the trilogy. So, we get more time with these characters. This is a longer film than the first movie. And so we spend more time, not just with Michael and, the rest of the family, but even the character of Fredo, which didn't get much to do in the first film. So, that really comes into play in this film in a very interesting way. The film takes us to Cuba for a little while, so there's some nice flavor there with the music and the cars and the clothes, Just felt like another world when they're in Cuba. And it's just a really great story. You know, it's so much richer than the first film, so much denser, it's more complicated. It pretty much has the same themes in terms of, you know, dealing with greed, honor, betrayal, friendship and loyalty, family, and all of it's done in the same fashion as the first film, just with impeccable precision, you know, meticulously crafted. And, you know, that's the work of a true genius. Francis Ford Coppola, if you're familiar with his other work, if you've seen, you know, Apocalypse Now, you know, or, you know, um, I really love, you know, his first film, but I believe it or not, I have a lot of respect for his third film, because even though with that third film, he did make some questionable choices as far as casting goes, I love a lot of the things that he did in that third film because of the way it affects Michael. Michael's character throughout this trilogy has a very consistent arc that is very believable. And by the time you get to the third film, again, Michael's character has changed. And it all comes back to this film. This film really shakes up the entire Corleone empire in terms of, you know, what happens. And I don't want to go into that. I don't want to spoil this movie for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. I've seen this movie with a few people and gotten to experience watching their reactions. I got to watch it with my son at a Fathom Events in a theater last year, and that was a really cool experience because I showed him the first film and he really dug it. You know, he's an older teen by now. So, you know, I sort of wait with him with certain films. You know, I want to wait till he's old enough. And so, of course, you know, given that, you know, a lot of these old great classics can be, uh, you know, if a lot of these rated R movies, you know, I don't want to show them to my kids when they're too young. So, yeah, after I showed him that first film, I just thought, I can't wait to show him that second one because it's so awesome. And then before I knew it, a couple weeks later, it actually was showing at a Fathom Events. So this is a great film to experience, even if it's, you know, at home. You know, I got to take him to see it at the big screen. That was such a special, you know, treat. But it doesn't matter whether you're at home or whether it's a big screen. The movie is so epic, and, you know, even with the smallest TV, you can feel it. It comes across. You know, the story is, like I said, you know, way bigger. Uh, Everybody is, you know, back in their A game as usual. And yeah, this is just a very worthy sequel to, you know, a movie that is really cinematic gold. You know, in terms of that first Godfather movie, you know, it's just so perfect. And Godfather 2, it's, you know, it's really a miracle, you know, because it's that rare sequel that doesn't come across very often. A movie that could be considered as good as the first one, or maybe even better. So please find this movie and check it out. Godfather 2, I know it's got to be out there on streaming. I mean, it's the Godfather Part 2. It's out there. And if you're having trouble finding it, get yourself a copy. You know, it's not very often that a first film comes out, wins the Oscar for Best Picture, and then the sequel comes out and does the same thing. So, you know, this is a bona fide classic. And, you know, Godfather Part 2, you know, it just might end up being one of those films that you want to show to more people just because you're, you know, so blown away by it. It's a tremendous achievement on a technical standpoint, on a storytelling standpoint. You know, just if you want to just look at it in terms of the acting performances, everything about this movie is, you know, chef's kiss, as they say. So, you know, if I could go higher than 4 stars on this, you know, 4.5, you know, shit. But The Godfather Part 2, this is a movie to respect, to love, and revere, and to be in awe of, to be honest. This is a movie that is so great, you know, you'll just be in awe by the time it's over. And you might feel like you've been punched in the gut. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Trying not to drag these out for too long, so I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. Go ahead and leave a like if you want, comment if you feel like it. If you want to share, that'll help out the channel, and I'll appreciate that for sure. And if you want to subscribe, hit that bell. And I'm going to keep on looking at my list and churning these out for everyone. So yes, and it's a long one too. It's a very long list. It's never ending because I've seen a lot of movies. So got lots to talk about in the future. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it and take care and God bless. Bye-bye.